the fuck? Does my camera like auto adjust to my face? Oh, that's awesome. We can have like a dance party in here. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is RedBeard, and today I'll be reading to you some scary stories from the deepest, darkest, most frightening layers of Reddit. So, cuddle up on your blankets, hold your teddy bears close, and prepare to get less spooked. And without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so this first one is by Strosus Stranger. And it's part of a series. It says, I'm a trucker of 15 years and I have seen some strange things. Sounds good. Alright, so let's read it. Let me just start this one off by saying thank you for the massive support. I've been thinking about which one to post. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's go 6 years back. I was in Oregon hauling a load, not too exciting, but I was enjoying the views in this beautiful state. Lots of mountains, forests, and lakes. Truly amazing for someone who loves nature. You see, people don't respect nature, and most of the time that will get you killed. What? There is a lot of things hiding in the woods and in the nature altogether. I'm not talking about bears and otters. I'm talking about demons, spirits, witches, and so on. Okay. So back to this one. I was driving up this mountain road, and again, I was the only one on it. It was dark, like really dark. There were no lampposts or nothing. The closest town was about 200 miles away. I was truly alone, and I was spooked. I know darkness is nothing to be messed with, and it may seem funny, but we all should be scared of the dark. Trust me, I know. To soothe my soul, I turned up the radio with some country music playing. Driving through the night. It was beautiful. I always like to take in the night jobs just to look at the sky. Sky night soothes me. You know, I can agree. I kind of like it driving at night when you can see the stars. It's really pretty, especially when you're outside of the city. You're in the country. It's good shit. The night sky soothes me. The cold and distant stars remind me of my home in Europe, far, far away. My memory of it is fading, but one day I will return. Sorry for getting carried away. You will find that I do that often. Music helped, but I needed to take a leak badly. I was holding it just until I got off this mountain, but I could hold no more. I pulled over on a straight, turned my hazards, and hopped out. It was a bit chilly outside, so I took my jacket. Now that I think about it, that jacket might have saved my life. My jacket was a logger's jacket, as you would call it. You know what I mean. So, putting on the jacket, I decided I would venture off into the start of the woods behind the truck and answer the calling of the wilderness there. I had no lamp or a battery, so I was relying on the moon for light. I unzipped my pants and was relieved instantly. I was done quickly, and I was turning around to go back to my truck and continue my journey. I heard something weird. Someone was chopping trees in the middle of the night in the mountain. It was unmistakable. It was really close, too. The chopping sounds were loud and hard. Someone was swinging that axe powerfully. Safe to say this was weird. In retrospect, what I did was stupid. If your gut tells you to turn around and go, you should always do that. Trust your survival instincts. Okay, but me, being a good guy I am, decided to see if someone needs some help. I started walking towards the sound, which took me even deeper into the woods. I could barely see nothing, I'm guessing, but somehow I was getting closer to the sound. In the distance, I could see a big, burly man swinging an axe. Sure this isn't a fan fiction? Wait, I'm talking to myself. He was huge, a proper logger, but what he was illuminated somehow, like there was a spotlight that followed him everywhere. I got closer, and with it, this weird smell like a skunk following me around. Maybe this guy's just chopping trees and smoking weed. There were bandages and cloths all over him, covered with red, deep or deep red blood. He was disfigured roughly, like someone threw him in a wood chipper. I knew right there I was in over my head, and this was a mistake. He turned around, and that dude was an angry man. He just stood there menacingly and swayed, his axe in his hand. He started to growl like a mad hound. With that stench got stronger. If I wasn't so scared, I would have been throwing up. The fight-or-flight instinct came up in me, and I fled. I ran like a crazy rabbit through the dark, and he was following me. A++ writing. I ran for about 2 minutes, and he was behind me all the time. For a huge man that I think now was a demon of some sorts, he ran fast. I could hear his growling on the back of my neck all the time, and that smell, it wouldn't go away too. I was hoping I am running in the right direction of my truck, and when I saw the hazards blinking in the distance, it was like a beacon of hope and life. I quickly got into it, and lucky for me, I left it unlocked. I got in and locked myself whilst breathing like a bull. I could see the logger running at the truck from a distance as I was turning on my truck. Somehow I turned it on, and was just about to get the fuck out when that crazy bastard ran his head through my window, breaking it. On a big truck like that? If it's a semi-truck that I'm thinking it is, because this guy's a semi-truck driver, isn't he? That'd be pretty hard to get your head up there with, because there's like a step, isn't there? Anyway, we're overthinking this. I could see him running behind the truck, driving his axe into the trailer, but I was out. After a few miles, my scared ass stopped by the side of the road to calm down. Walking around my truck, I saw damage holes made by the axe all around. I didn't know if I imagined this or not, but I swear the smell came back, so I got in my rig and got out of there. I still don't know how I managed to escape there, how I didn't trip and fall. I mentioned how the jacket might have saved my life. You see, he waited there and growled at me. If he attacked me right away, I'd be a goner. Maybe he thought I was a logger too. The police couldn't help me in this case, as nothing had happened. What do you mean, he broke your window? But once again, I took it upon myself to research this event. There's this legend I found, an old one. A logger once died in Oregon. They called him the Bandaged Man because of all the bandages on his face. Now he's an angry spirit that waits for someone lucky soul like mine to reap his revenge upon them for his untimely death. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know about that one. It wasn't really that freaky. I didn't think so. There's definitely better stories on here than that shit. Alright, we'll read this one. I am a Park Service Sidewinder, Part 3. Sorry for the delayed post. I am currently online helping with a bushfire in southern Utah. I suppose that itself answers a question many people have had, namely, what did I become before becoming a BML search officer? For 3 years, I was a hotshot firefighter. You know the type, and if you don't, well, suffice to say it, we were called fire eaters for a reason. 20 guys would march up into the brush fire to physically cut fire breaks and fight right on the front line. Hard but rewarding work. In any case, I have a breakdown now. We just came out from cutting a break, and it doesn't look like the fire will jump this one, so I should be able to share a shorter story from my time working as a sidewinder. As I said previously, one of the problems we have in the desert is the sheer number of planes that crash in the area. There's actually something of a Bermuda Triangle in the southwest, where numerous planes will simply vanish. We typically find them several years later, usually crashed into a mountain or on the flat pans? You mean planes? I don't know. The planes crash on the planes? Oh gosh, I was making a stupid joke and lost my spot. There we are. Most of the time, pilots simply get disorientated due to the magnetic iron that's found down there. It plays havoc with compasses, or simply run out of fuel. Due to the remoteness, well, like I said, we don't find them for a long time. More often than not, a hiker stumbles across a wreck. Don't they use, like, satellites for planes nowadays, though? Anyway. Regardless of the type of plane that goes down, whether private, commercial, or military, the protocol is always the same. A code black is declared, which means all hands on deck. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, or planning to do, you drop everything and rush to pick up the point. I've heard stories of guys who left their own weddings, leaving their brides at the altar to respond. Once at the pickup, we are briefed and dropped off by helicopter at our search positions. It depends on the guys, but generally it takes a full direct order from the district commander to make guys give up on the search. I myself have ignored the recall command more than once, searching a day longer, just hoping to find something, anything. The last code black I was called for was probably my hardest one. I still have nightmares from this one, and it touched everyone. It hurt, and it still terrifies me. One more of a mystery of the desert, worse even than the doors. I think he's talking about an earlier story for that one. Maybe we'll read that one day. Last summer, I had just come off a patrol and was enjoying a well-deserved breakfast at my favorite dive when the call came in. I dropped everything, tossed a few bills on the table, and ran out to my truck. I don't remember the drive to the rendezvous point, but it's safe to say that I had the lights on and the siren blaring and the speedometer needle pegged. I can't tell you whether or not I had a police escort, though I suspect I picked one up at some point. All I remember was being told over the phone that this was a big one, and we were needed yesterday. Once at the briefing, I sat anxiously awaiting my orders and my search area. The captain informed us that this was a strange one. He called black, simply meaning our group, there was 8 of us there, had most experience with strange happenings. He went on to detail the job, and the more he told us, the quieter things became. Earlier that day, the military base had received a panic transmission on a one of the VHF channels. There we go. They had been unable to maintain contact with the pilot, but had ascertained a bit of information. First and foremost, the plane in question was a DC-3 that had supposedly left an airfield in Nebraska, bound for Vegas. The pilot was reporting engine trouble after having flown through a thunderhead and was disoriented. He also seemed to be having trouble with his radio. Well, you probably would after flying through a thunderstorm, as they could only send messages and not receive them. ATC for White Sands Base scrambled a pair of fighters to intercept and assist the plane, but they were unable to reach the pilot in time. About 15 minutes after picking up the first signal, the pilot reported that he was losing her, and the plane had started to go down. He was shooting for a belly landing in the sand, but the radio had cut out before he had started his descent. Due to the proximity of the base, at least that's what I thought at the time, the military were taking charge of the search. While they had their own searchers, the base commander had worked with Sidewinders in the past on some other jobs, which I can't talk about, so he wisely decided to contact our district commander and request our aid. We were each given a large area to search and instructed to call for air assistance once we found the crash, if we found it. All told, we had a good 200-mile area to search. A large part of it was covered by military search aircraft, while we were being sent into specific search locations. I ended up being dropped off along a bluff that eventually tumbled down into some rolling scrub hills and a pan of sand. Waving at the pilot as he took off, I was rewarded with a smart salute and stood there watching the helicopter fly off into the distance. Turning around, I looked over at the dying light of the day and set off. There is something peaceful yet unnerving about the desert at night. Maybe I had been out there too long, but it always seemed like something, or someone, is watching me. I hiked for 2 hours until it became too dark to continue, and then settled in for the night. As I sat on my bedroll, I ran over the story we were given. So many things about this didn't make sense. First and foremost, the plane in question. This was an old World War II era plane, not some modern jet. Slow doesn't even describe these things accurately. Thing is, they were pretty damn robust planes, so it's unlikely that losing a single engine would send one down. With enough fuel to spare, one should have been able to limp into the airfield without really much trouble. There were other minor things that didn't fit, but realizing that the more I thought, the less sleep I got, I reluctantly turned in. The morning brought with it dark clouds on the horizon and the taste of salt in the air. Rain was coming. Taking a deep breath, I set off further into the desert. I walked 2 more days before I picked up some kind of trail. Off in the distance, maybe 10 or 15 miles down in the scrub and along a dry riverbed, I picked up a piece of metal. It looked like the rest of the day to reach the... It took me the rest of the day to reach there, mostly due to me having to divert around a deep crevice and avoid a group of no less than 4 doors oriented in a loose circle around a central rock. Reaching the site, I found that it was a plane, or at least it had been one. From where I stood, I could see a deep scar in the ground where the plane had hit it, but the impact shearing off a wing and causing the main body of the plane to roll over. Wreckage was scattered everywhere. There was also remnants of a fire, but it didn't seem the fire had struck, thanks likely due to the lack of brush. Moving closer to the plane, I peeked in through the crack in the fuselage and shined my light in to check for survivors. No one moved. It looked like the passengers had suffered the worst of the crash, and from the smell of the burnt flesh, they hadn't been able to escape the flames. Curiously, they didn't seem to be dressed in modern clothing. Rather, they wore what looked like military uniforms, though very old ones. That's freaking weird. Moving out of the fuselage, I headed in the direction of the cockpit and had been torn from the plane during the crash. That's when I heard a voice call out for help. Dropping everything, I followed the sound and discovered a young man dressed in what I'd best describe as a khaki flight suit, propped up against a low rock. He was severely injured, though alive, if only barely. Quickly triaging the man, I turned to my phone and called it in, adding that there was a survivor. Within minutes, the area was abuzz with rescuers, helicopters, and an inordinate number of military types. Without so much as a thank you or an explanation, I was ordered out of the area. This was now a military operation, and sure, while we may have been warned at one time, we weren't now. I and the other searchers were rather unceremoniously bundled into a helicopter and flown out. Speculation ran rampant among us to what had happened, with the best guess having been some kind of dark, secret military transport having gone down. I watched the news for the next several days expecting to see the story crop up, and yet it never did. To this day, no word of that rescue has ever been talked about outside of the few of us who worked on it. It always bothered me, and a few weeks ago I decided to finally broach the subject with my boss. He looked at me levelly before simply sighing. He knew I wasn't about to let the story die, and that, like a fox hunting for a mouse, I wasn't about to stop until I had answers. Closing the door to the office, he gestured for me to sit and said that what he was about to say stayed with us, and that if anyone ever questioned him on it, he'd deny everything. It was 1952. A plane transporting a number of military officers and scientists departed a military airfield in Nebraska bound for Vegas. The scientists had been working on something that had to do with the U.S. nuclear weapons projects of the day. After several hours in the air, the pilot reported that the weather was turning bad and he was being forced to fly through a thunderhead. At that point, all contact with the plane was lost. The military searched for the plane for years, but never found any evidence of it crashing, and wrote it off as having gone down somewhere in the desert. Given the nature of the scientists and the cargo on board, the whole matter was swept under the rug and denied ever having been attempted. Rumor had it the military hadn't given up with the Philadelphia experiment, and the cargo and scientists on board had something to do with that. The plane I had found, yeah, same one, over 50 years missing, and yet the passengers and cargo remained. Hell, even one pilot had survived. Sadly, it seems time caught up with him. Within hours of the rescue, the man quickly began to quickly age, and by the end of the day he had been reduced to little better than a skeleton. As to the cargo, it was never found. Damn, spilled coffee. Well, I think that was definitely a better written story, but, you know, it didn't really give me the creeps. A little disappointed again. We'll try one more. Hopefully my camera battery lasts. If not, then you guys probably won't be seeing me read this one. A 400-year-old message in a bottle is addressed to me. Last year, my wife Janice and I were out walking on the Beach River. Where do I come up with this stupid shit? On the beach near our house. We've been married almost 20 years and still hold hands wherever we go. So my first awareness of the bottle was when she started racing ahead and dragging me across the sand. "Hey Matt, look at the size of that shell," she said, simultaneously blocking my view of it as she ran ahead. "Ooh, wait, is that what I think it is?" "Probably, assuming you think it's a piece of trash." Janice let go of my hand to drop to her knees, allowing her skirt to pull around her on the sand. "It's not, it's a treasure. It's probably some homeless man's piss pot. Anyone who has been married knows exactly what the look was she gave me. Sort of I know you long enough that you don't have to pretend you're funny anymore look. It was a beautiful bottle though, despite the erosion and the clinging barnacles of countless years had stained its surface with. It seemed to be made of some type of ceramic, and the fat base was surrounded in intricate geometrical designs. A leering face was carved into the neck, and a moldy cork with a pungent smell was wedged to the top. Janice wasted no time trying to pry it open with her nails. "It looks like something that might have been on an old ship," she said, grunting with the effort, like an offended farm animal. "How can you not be excited by this?" I shrugged, looking out at the sea. I like to save all my excitement for big things, like weekends and pizza night. This guy's got his priorities straight. Speaking of, but she had opened it now. She turned it over to shake the contents into her outstretched palm. Son of a bitch. I expected a rush of water and nothing else, but the thin rolled out parchment which slipped out was immaculately preserved. Janice unrolled it and studied the page. The wonder in her face gave way to amusement, then incredulity, her brow continuing to furrow into a bitter anger. "Well, don't leave me hanging. What's it about?" I asked. "I don't know. Ask your girlfriend." She shoved into my chest and turned to stomp back towards her house without another word. Bewildered, I opened the letter and read, "Dear Matthew Davis, I miss you, I need you. How much longer will you make me wait? If your love endures as mine has done, what keeps you away from me?" "Janice, honey," I called, unable to tear my eyes away from the note. The paper, the bottle, even the smooth, archaic penmanship, all seeming ancient and untampered with. So what were the chances that it would be addressed to someone else with my name? My wife had already gone, though. She didn't want to talk to me about it until late that night, when I finally got frustrated enough to snap. Snap at her. It was either a coincidence or a practical joke played on me, neither of which are my fault. She wasn't convinced, but at least she opened up to her fear that I was cheating on her. She thought that someone hid my note, that note near my house where I would find it as a romantic gesture. Eventually she came around, but it was an uneasy piece at best. It only got harder from there. There was another bottle almost every morning wedged in the sand at high tide, even as though it had washed up overnight. Sometimes my wife would find them, other times I would. I posted pictures online of a few of the bottles, and the closest match I was able to find were potions used by 17th century alchemists. That seemed like an important clue to me, but all my wife ever focused on were the notes. The ocean ends, although we do not see it. The summer fades, though the sun seems unassailable in the sky. Only our love will never grow old. I hope that I will not give up on you, Matt. Or, how long has it been since we made love? Do you still remember what it felt like to be with me? Janice did her best to play it off as a joke, but I could tell that there was something getting to her. She kept making excuses to spend more time alone, and when I pressed her to talk about her jealousy, she'd only treat it as an accusation and get defensive. We'd start fights over nothing until, by the end of the night, we were screaming at each other. The next morning, neither of us could remember why. One night, all it took was me coming home late from work, and she was yelling before I'd even opened the door. I couldn't take it anymore. I just slammed the car in reverse and left without a word, driving down to the beach to be alone. All the bottles were arriving within about a 100-yard stretch, so I resolved to spend the whole night there until I caught the creatures just below the surface. Or I caught whoever was really leaving them. Shit. Despite living within walking distance of the ocean, I never spent much time there. After the sun went down, It's amazing how alien a familiar place can be when the night closes in. The gentle rhythm of the waves seemed less innocent somehow, like I was listening to some colossal creature slowly breathing beside me. The reflection of the moon cast strange shapes into the water, and the cresting of each black wave seemed like it was being disoriented by unseen creatures just below the surface. I maintained my silent vigil until after midnight, when the moon was masked by a thick layer of clouds. My phone had run out of batteries, and it was so dark that I didn't think I would have seen someone drop the bottle 10 feet away. It would have been completely black if it wasn't for the reflection in the ocean. I was getting ready to give up, or at least go back to the car and look for a flashlight, when a thought occurred to me. If the moon was completely obscured, how was its light still reflecting from the water? The longer I stared at it, the more sure I was that the light wasn't a reflection at all. The soft luminescence was coming from below the waves. I raced back to my car to check for the flashlight, but I didn't find one. There was some snorkeling mask in the trunk though, so I took that out instead and returned to the beach. Don't snorkel in the dark. It's a bad idea. I stripped to my underwear and took a step in. The water was ice around my ankles, and I almost turned around, but the light was even stronger now, and I was drawn like a moth to a flame. By the time the water reached my knees, my feet were so numb that I couldn't even feel them. The light was moving too, twisting and dancing like a living thing, 1 second drawing close, the next leading me out deeper. Deep breath before the plunge, and I flung myself into the oncoming waves. The cold water closed over my head, but the thrill of my discovery made it feel like liquid energy washing over my body. The light was coming from a woman, shining out through her translucent skin. She was gracefully twirling through the water, her slightest movements propelling her. Propelling her more easily than a practiced stroke. At first she looked like she was swimming, but as I drew closer it quickly became apparent that all the movements were wrong. Her elbows and knees moved in an unnatural double-jointed arcs, her neck appeared to have no bones at all, and it turned fluidly to track me independently of her turning body. In her right hand she carried a bottle, just like the kind that had washed up on the shore. If my mouth hadn't been full of water, I might have screamed. I also might have said, "Hello, Janice," and she might have said, "I've been waiting for you." I didn't know how long I followed her for. She let me almost get close enough to touch her before drifting just out of reach. I was mesmerized by the light and couldn't resist trying to get a better look. If it weren't for the eldritch radiance and the strange movements, I could have sworn it was Janice, and I thought if I could only get close enough to catch her that I'd know for sure. I was getting tired though, and stretching for the ground and feeling nothing, I suddenly realized how deep I actually swam. I searched the surface in a panic. The lights of the houses on the shore were so far away that they looked like stars. I spun helplessly in place, trying to get the bearings of where I was, when a hand grabbed my ankle. She didn't try to yank me down. The caress was gentle, but as soon as I tried to pull away, her grip tightened. I felt her fingers climbing up my leg, the incessant pressure building like a constricting snake, slowly strangling its prey. I tried to start swimming back towards the shore, but the more I fought against her, the harder she pulled. A moment later, and I was underwater again, bending double to vainly try and pry her hands off with my fingers. Water was flowing into my nose and mouth at this point, the bitter salt igniting my throat and flooding me with fresh waves of panic. The more I panicked, the harder I fought, and the harder I fought, the deeper I was dragged. The last thing I remember was Janice wrapping her whole body around me, her limbs and spine completely encompassing me as though she had no bones at all. I remember the icy waters giving way to numbness, then the suffocating pressure giving way to oblivion. It was early morning when I woke up on my back on the beach. There was a bottle still clutched in my hands. "Can you forgive me?" it read. "I forgive you as long as you visit me every year. I can wait a little longer for you to be mine again." Even when I went home, it didn't feel like home anymore. I found Janice's body lying in bed with nothing but an empty bottle of Jack Daniels and 2 empty containers of sleeping pills. I was sick of notes, but there was one left for me to read. I saw it on the night table. "I saw you with her in the water, and I'll never forgive you. It's been a year since my wife took her life. Maybe when I go back down to the water to visit her again, she'll finally understand." Well, that's confusing. I don't understand that one bit. I don't really get that. So, did his wife kill herself? And then he wants to be with this lady in the water? Or is the lady in the water his actual wife, but he left her out there to decompose? These are the questions that I have, but will never be answered, because who fucking knows, man? I don't know. I think that was scary towards the end. Wasn't like super freaky or that really crazy, but it's definitely a thinker anyway. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. My camera is running out of battery, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click that like button and that subscribe button. Join the RedBeard crew, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and have yourself a wonderful day.